Right then, fam, I thought today we'd have a little bit of fun. What is the oddest, weirdest, ripped out games you've ever played? Now, I'm hoping to turn this into a little discussion between you and me. And if anybody out there has a YouTube channel and wants to do a video response, then please feel free. I'd love to know what you think on this topic. So I'm going to give 2 examples of video games that were just like, huh? But I also enjoyed. So, the first one, I have to go way back to my beginnings as a gamer. Back to the microcomputers. Back to the Commodore 16. There's some of you out there going, what's a Commodore 16? What's a microcomputer? Let me explain for some of the younger members of the Zen family. Back in the day, there were basically computers that were like fairly low powered, and they were primarily put out for putting games on. You've heard of the ZX Spectrum, right? In that vein. The Amstrad, in that vein. Well, Commodore was also in the same strata. You had a cassette, plug said cassette into a reading machine. The reading machine would process the data, put it into the memory system of the microcomputer, and away you go. Now, admittedly, this process would usually take anywhere from half an hour to an hour 15, and sometimes you'd have to do it again because sometimes it wouldn't work. But we'll leave all that to the side. I've spoken before, and many other YouTubers have spoken before, about the quote-unquote the joys of gaming back on the microcomputers. Anyway, the first game was called Mr. Puniverse. Now, in this game, you played a small stick-figure bloke who walked around from environment to environment to environment. And they were partially sort of basically platformers and kind of puzzle platformers at that, but they were also puzzle platformers with elements of risk. And you had one life, and if you screwed up, you had to start that level all over again. There's none of the things being solved. You had to solve everything all over again. And there was no map, there was no navigation. You basically had to learn where every world node was, and then go to it, and then hopefully succeed in it. And once you'd succeed in it, you could travel back and forward between the nodes, but only on that particular gameplay excursion. You booted up the game another time, you had to do all this stuff again. So it wasn't just like, like in a modern game where you go to an area, you do stuff, and then you have a future playthrough and you come back to that area and all the stuff is done and you can look for other things to do in that area. No. Everything was rebuilt again. But the main thing that made this game weird was just the sheer structuring of it. I'd never played anything like it or since. It was baffling because the game was so opaque, yet it was so ultimately playable. And there was this mystique of like, what lies beyond? And what exactly is going on? In fact, in some cases, I honestly believe that Hideo Kojima must have played this game in his youth before he made Death Stranding. The game's just completely out there. It makes very little sense. It might make sense to my adult brain now. But back when I was like a kid, playing on this thing in the 80s, I couldn't be head or tails of it. But somebody just kept drawing me back, making me play. And I was determined to figure the game out. Unfortunately, I never did. But if you played that game and you know what it's about, then please obviously type it down below and let Zemblock know. Then I have to make things a bit more modern. But not totally modern, because there's the fun in that. The second game that was just weird was on the Vita. So it's not that old, but still a bit old. That game was the wonderful, the creative, and the highly visually interesting Murasaki Baby. Now, Murasaki Baby was basically, imagine the Addams Family turned up to 11. And you play this small girl demon thing who is basically on a hunt to find her mum. At least I think she's on a hunt to find her mum. There's never much in the way of spoken dialogue. But basically there's a lost child, and you're trying to guide this child through a world unscathed. And you use the touchpad and you use the front touch to change aspects of the world around the child to make traversal through the world happen. So there's interesting story elements, there's interesting visual elements, and there's interesting player control elements, all mixing together to create a really interesting and different game that just kept me powering through and kept me, just wanting to play. And it was a little bit different because instead of having lives, instead of your character having a life bar, your little girl demon thing, she had a balloon, and it was the balloon, technically speaking, that you had to keep safe. So if there was fire or spikes or gaggy monsters or things with biting that flew, you had to make sure that the balloon was safe. If the balloon was safe, that was heart-shaped, the little girl was safe. And you made your way through these deeply messed up worlds, some of which were actually, I wouldn't call them scary, but they were unsettling. And unsettling in the way of a lost child would feel, kind of lost in a world, and when the world is bigger than the child's imagination, and the child is scared by that. So, remember, if you ever were lost from your parents in a shopping centre when you were little, and your parents were probably only an aisle or two away, but for you, as far as you knew, you could have been in Australia, and you were by yourself, and you didn't know anybody, you didn't know anything, and there was that existential dread that comes over a small child. You kind of relive some of that in Murasaki Baby, but at an intellectual level. It's a really clever little game, and if you ever get hold of a PlayStation Vita or something that can, play PlayStation Vita games, like a PlayStation Vita TV, then I fully, utterly recommend Murasaki Baby. Because, yes, it's deeply odd. Yes, the art style is completely bananas. But it's such a wonderful little game to play that just keeps coming back. And, as I said before, if you have a game that you think is deeply, deeply odd, but you think it's been slept on by too many people, or not enough people know about it at the very least, then stick it in that comment section. And if you want to go deeper and you actually really want to tell me and make this a true conversation, then as I said at the start of the video, please by all means make a video response. I love video responses. They're just fantastic. I just think they add something special to YouTube. In the words of Generation Pixel, it's a conversation between you and me that makes YouTube YouTube. At least I think he says something like that. I can't remember exactly what, but it's in that too. Anyway, hashtag support Scottish YouTubers, and of course, as always, nay bother.